Welcome to the HooptieDoodle. Here we practice a unique form of environmentalism by keeping vehicles out of the scrap heap. Because you know it takes a lot of energy to recycle all that metal. In this build series, we're taking a motorcycle that was on its very last leg and transforming it into something fun again. By the time we're done, some might even call it cool. But before we can start building the cool into this thing, we need to excise some old demons. And first on that list is figuring out what's wrong with this freaking engine, fixing it, and getting it running again. In our previous two videos, we removed the clutch friction discs and checked the oil filter. In the oil filter, we found some copper colored chips. Now what in an engine would be made of copper, you might ask? And a good answer to that is the crank main bearings. Turns out, crank main bearings are made of various metals. They can be made of steel, aluminum, tin, lead, and copper, which is just more evidence at this point that the crank is our sticking point. So we need to get this crank out, but before we can get to the crank, we need to remove several other items off the engine first. This includes the front and rear engine panels, the alternator rotor, the alternator drive shaft, the clutch housing, the coolant pump, and the stator. And that's what we're doing today. If you like today's video, please hit the thumbs up, like button down below and let YouTube know that this is a good video. And if you are enjoying the build series so far, we haven't even gotten to the good parts yet, so if you're enjoying it so far, please subscribe to the channel. I would love to have you along on this HooptieDoodle adventure. Okay, so according to my service manual, this is supposed to be relatively straightforward. We're trying to remove this back panel here that encompasses all of this stuff there. There are 11 bolts in total, supposedly, on this. So there's one there, one there, one there, there. And then tap this thing with a rubber mallet and it should come off. This guy's an 8mm. Alright, so then on mine, I've got this little chrome cover. And there's a bolt out here that holds that on, and then it should slide off. Wow, check that out. So there's our stator right there. There's the drive shaft for the points. Here's the drive shaft for the rear wheel. Awesome. All right, here's our clutch housing. This is our stator housing thing there. There is a drive chain right here, and this is like where the starter would go, is right in there. The clutch housing still, and then you can see below that there's a chain down here. Right there, you can see the chain. I believe that chain connects up to the clutch. I believe there's gears on the back of this clutch that it connects to. Alright, next I'm removing the alternator rotor, which is this guy right here. For some particular reason, it has, the nut on this is like a dual nut that has both a 12 and 17mm option on there. In order to get this guy off, there are a couple slots in this part of it back in here where you can insert a pry bar right here and then put a breaker bar out on this guy. And that's what we're gonna do. Alright, that was not on there that hard actually. And there's the nut for that one. This is supposed to just slide off. This is a decently sized thing. This is some good rotational mass right there. And there is a thrust washer behind it. Alright, next we're going to tackle getting off this alternator drive shaft right here. So that's this guy here. This is the drive shaft. This whole chain and everything comes off as well. The only thing holding this on is that one bolt there with the little retainer clip. So we should just be able to take this bolt off, and then this whole thing should slide off of there. And that guy's a 10mm. 10mm. That guy's off. Alright, so our next step in removing this alternator drive shaft are these 4 remaining bolts. And again, these are 10mm bolts. This guy is supposed to slide out. Look at that. There's a giant spring on the back of this one as well. Alright, so on this guy, there is, on the back side, you'll notice There's this little tab here. This is an alignment tab, basically. This goes in the very top. So when you put it back in, it orients exactly like that with this tab up at the top. And on the actual engine, you'll see that where the tab fits in, this is a larger diameter opening. And these are threads. You can see the threads on all the other guys. You can't see the threads on this. The threads are back further in there. And this one also has the one long bolt here goes in the top. All right, next we're moving to the front side of the engine. This is where the oil filter is, and this is the coolant pump right there. And we're gonna remove this plate off the front. There's a couple bolts. These are also 8mm bolts. All right, so on the back side of this guy, we have got for the water pump, this is the little drive shaft here for the water pump. And then that wire comes through the top here, and then comes down here to, what is this guy? Some sort of sensor. Apparently this has to do with the transmission and the gear selection here. And that little sensor on the back side of that cover that we took off has a little bar that fits into here. Maybe that's our gear selection sensor there. And so what confused me here in taking this apart is that the case splits like right there. And so this looks like it's attached, but it's not. So I don't have to take any of this stuff off. So we should be good on this side of the engine in terms of splitting the case. I'm gonna swing it around. I still need to remove this clutch housing. The only information I can find in the book is a statement in the list of general overhaul that says remove clutch housing. That's it. So I'm gonna use my own judgment here. This could be where everything goes wrong. I took off the little circlip on there the other day. There's a chain thing mechanism on the back side of this, and I can see the little gear for the chain mechanism down here. And it looks like there's a little Allen head bolt on that gear. And so my plan is to remove that bolt off of that gear and see if everything will come off. All right, so this is the back side of it. This is what it looks like. We've got a nice little chain on the back there. All right, we've now got the clutch housing off, and we are one step closer, I think, to splitting this case. We've got, I believe, everything removed off the back side here. There is a big old gasket on here. And then the only other thing in the manual it says is to remove this plate. This plate is supposed to be hiding the final drive idler gear. And at this point I'm supposed to remove this plate and then take that idler gear out. Alright, so these bolts again are 8mm. There it is. This is the final drive in here, and it's just already loose in there because if you recall, that was where we took the drive shaft off here. Now we can just pull that sucker right out of there. Oh man. Alright, so final drive is out. Now we're down to the nitty gritty of splitting the case. We've taken off everything else that we can possibly take off. And so now we're down to the bolts that hold the case tabs together. So here's the front of the engine. This is the right side of the engine. There are 3 bolts on the right side near the back half of the case. There's one right here.
There's another right here, and the third is way down at the bottom.
We've taken the 3 bolts off the right side here. Our next step is to flip it around and tip it over and sit it on the right side. And then we take out the bolts on this side.
There's 1, 2, 3 big ones, 1, 2, 3 little ones there. I think there's another one right there. There's a few in here, and here. 4 little ones down there.
I'm gonna take all the little ones off, and I'll leave these 3 big ones here on, and then we'll tip it. So these 3 up here are 10mm. Well, that's it for today. We got pretty far. I'm happy with what progress I made today. I did not get the case split. That's like the big thing, is to split this case and take a look at that crank. we didn't quite get that far, but we did get a bunch of stuff off of there, and I'm thrilled that we are right at the point of splitting this case. We would split the case today except that it doesn't want to come apart, and I want to make sure I don't damage it. Then I'd have to get a new case, and we don't want to do that. So that means I'm going to go back to the drawing board. I'm going to look and see what other people have done, come up with ideas of how to split a case neatly. I like to do things neatly. So that's where we are today. Thank you very much for watching. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time.